listen to our points of view on supply chain collaboration. I'm Ryan Gianni. I'm a senior director at GEP, focused in supply chain consulting. I'm going to kick it over to my colleagues who are going to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Ben Flock. I'm the global lead of solution design for the GEP supply chain suite of applications.
And hello, Mark Szejkowski, Senior Director, and I lead our Global Value Advisory team here at GEP Software.
A few things at a high level on GEP that are near and dear to our hearts are really that we are a global firm with a number of offices across the globe. We are a minority and women-owned business, as each of our founders fits that profile. And that's something that we really take great pride in, especially in the supply chain space, which is also differentially the area that we solely focus in. We don't do HR, we don't do finance advisory, we solely do procurement and supply chain. So those 5,500 employees are solely focused in the supply chain business. You couple that with our diverse status, this makes us a pretty unique organization. Now I want to talk on the scope of what we focus on within supply chain. GEP has obviously become well known in the sourcing and procurement space, and for good reason. However, for the last several years, we've been developing our broader supply chain capabilities across the plan, make, and deliver areas, in addition to procurement. We can appreciate that our clients are challenged in the areas of other than just SG&A cost reduction, to areas like cost of goods takeout, supply chain risk, working capital improvements, and even revenue and service level improvements. Now, the solutions to these challenges to capture this broader value don't necessarily reside simply within sourcing and procurement. We understand that, which is why we've really evolved our thinking to help support our clients in a more end-to-end supply chain fashion. Now, we can also understand that each client is different with different requirements. So we can attack the problem with not just software, but also process strategy and even managed services to really drive value in a multifaceted and more efficient way. Now, this is a big differentiator for us because many of our competitors really have 2 out of the 3, or maybe just 1, but not very many have all 3. This really allows us to tailor our approach in a much more targeted way. As I mentioned, we have capabilities across plan, procure, make, and deliver. And this means that we have expertise and solutions in the areas of digital supply chain planning, S&OP, collaborative planning, inventory optimization, network optimizations, warehousing and transportation management, and so on and so forth. When we say we do consulting strategy, software, and managed services, it means that we have developed specific offerings that can be brought off the shelf and tailored specific to each situation and each client. Now, our offerings are specifically developed to focus on the key value levers for our clients, but they're also customizable. They really help us accelerate the speed to value, but they also tie together, so we can demonstrate value throughout the life cycle until it actually drops to your bottom line. So in other words, we don't just provide a bunch of PowerPoints and say, that's value, because we got you half the way there. Nor do we just provide a software or solution that might help meet your needs. We actually can tie things from the moment of inception to implementation across a number of dimensions. With supply chains today, we can say that software and digital is really synonymous with success. Now, although fixing business process is essential, and it's really the only way to ensure that digital transformation is also successful, once those issues are known and addressed, success is really determined by how well the solution fits to solving the business issue. So in other words, the sheer volume of data and the requirements for advanced data science in this day and age make great software tools a requirement to really driving and achieving the value. And GEP proprietary software is really focused in the areas of supply chain procurement, and more specifically in the collaboration aspects of the supply chain. Now, our procurement modules provide core sourcing capabilities, our procurement modules provide core sourcing capabilities, contract management, RFX, supplier collaboration, spend analytics, should cost modeling, so on and so forth. Our supply chain modules also provide core supply chain visibility and supply chain management capabilities as well. Because data science and visibility drive a lot of the success in supply chains, GEP has made a point to focus in those areas of value chain collaboration. The ability to seamlessly capture data, not just from within the enterprise, but also with the extended value chain partners, the suppliers, customers, contract manufacturers, and 3PLs, is critical to success in today's day and age. We've also built the capability to analyze and drive decisions and actions with data, with AI, machine learning, and natural language conversion engines. During our discussion here in a couple minutes, we'll get into more discussions on these capabilities. However, the outcome of all this is greater access to information so that planners, buyers, and other supply chain professionals can make quicker, smarter, and better decisions. So we have some exciting things that we want to share with you today. Quick glance at our agenda is, we'll first tee up our key collaboration modules that drive a lot of value. We'll then talk about inventory visibility. Also, should cost, visibility, and management is a key area that we'll discuss. We'll also hold some time at the end for Q&A from the audience to capture your perspective and answer and address some of the issues that you're facing today. So without further delay, let's get started on our discussion topics. Mark, you're constantly out in the marketplace. What are you seeing companies face today?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So a couple of the themes that we see in the prospects and customers that I'm working with on a daily and weekly basis, they're experiencing scarcity of supply. That's become a big issue, obviously, in the last couple of years. Lost visibility into the supply chain as they're placing purchase orders and are looking to get raw materials into their manufacturing plants and distribution centers. They're unable to get visibility to where they are within the supply chain. And of course, something that everybody's experiencing today with inflationary pressures is cost volatility and cost variability. So how are we managing the costs across their supply chain as we move forward?
Those are great points, Mark. I think we're seeing a lot of that in the marketplace. Why don't we start on multi-tier collaboration?
Thank you, Ryan. So we're going to talk about multi-tier collaboration. We'll start today, and we'll talk to Ben here shortly on forecast collaboration. We'll talk about purchase order and contract manufacturing collaboration. But really what we're focusing on is the broader supply chain network. So when we think about multi-tier collaboration, we don't just want to focus within the four walls of your company, the four walls of your organization or division, or the four walls of your manufacturing facility. We want to think about the broader supply chain network. It's about your supplier, it's about your supplier's suppliers, and their suppliers, and making sure that everybody is successful and moving through that value chain in order to ultimately deliver to the end customer on time and in full. So some of the challenge that we're seeing as it pertains to collaboration in the supply chain network is that siloed data, right? So there's a lack of visibility between your organization and that supplier and their supplier, right? And that's something that we believe that GEP can address. We're also seeing a lot of disconnected processes. So there's a lack of workflow as it pertains to collaboration within the supply chain and a lack of fully integrated orchestration. And of course, there's distributed teams. So we're still doing a lot of communication via email and via phone, and that's not optimal for working inside the supply chain planning organization. These are leading to higher operating costs, increased inventory, long lead times, late shipments, and of course, an opportunity to lose revenue. When we think about collaboration in the supply chain, and when we think about where does the supply chain begin, we talk about forecast collaboration, right? Or we talk about generating a demand forecast. And we know many of the organizations today are very good at generating forecasts, but I think where they start to fall flat or they miss an opportunity is their ability to collaborate on that forecast with the supplier and have that supplier commit to that forecast, providing them continuity of supply and more confidence in their supply plan moving forward. So Ben, maybe you can talk to the group here today on how GEP and our forecast collaboration solution can assist them and ensuring a better continuity of supply going forward.
Yep, absolutely, Mark. So you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? I think a lot of organizations do a great job of supply planning, but they do that for themselves and they don't do a great job of sharing those forecasts with their suppliers and potentially their suppliers. So GEP has really put a lot of effort into developing a collaboration platform that allows you to share that information with selected suppliers. And the way this kind of works from our perspective is that you have the concept of buying sites, which are typically your facilities where you're running a supply plan. We have the concept of supplying enterprises, obviously your suppliers. And the way our collaboration platform works is that you are able to take the output of your supply plan, a forecast, and send that forecast to your suppliers or your suppliers. Your supplier will then review that either manually or through their supply planning or demand planning and provide a supplier commit back to the buying site. They can also provide upside, so perhaps they have some excess capacity, and that would be great information for the buying site to know in case they have another supplier that may be constrained or has other issues. And then we have the ability to send what if forecasts back to those suppliers as well. So this kind of gives you a longer term, what if our demand increases greatly, or what if there's other supply constraints in the network?
Ben, I think that's great. And I can tell you from my personal experience in running a supply chain for an industrial manufacturer a few years ago that if my team had the ability to collaborate with our suppliers on our forecast and get commits, that my production schedule adherence would increase, my supply plan attainment would go up. Of course, material availability from the supply base would increase, not only amongst my strategic suppliers, but some of those materials that I may have struggled to get in the past, I now have better visibility into. And of course, my team, it was a lot of manual activities in order to drive this within a supply chain planning organization. And as you start to move into more strategic activities, I needed them to have time back in their day to do more value added things to provide to our sales and operations planning process, our integrated business planning process, and those things that were really going to help us drive revenue and operating income to the bottom line. So really appreciate the forecast collaboration. So I know, Ryan, I talked a little bit about my own personal experience running a supply chain. And I know from a consulting perspective, you're out in the field, you're talking to customers, prospects, you guys are working very strategic projects. Do you have an example of a customer or two where they have executed on forecast collaboration and received a benefit?
That's actually a great question, Mark, and one we see a lot of our clients have issues with. Actually, we have a customer, a client here that we're working with in the high tech industry, where they had issues with forecast collaboration from their demand forecasting to their supply base. And what's actually really interesting is that not only do they have forecast collaboration issues and needs, but they're also doing purchase order collaborations as well. And so we're budgeting and we're combining those capabilities together in one solution.
Ryan, that's a great segue to purchase order collaboration, right? So the next logical step as part of the process is after you have that forecast is to execute a purchase order against that hard demand as it starts to come into your planning systems. Some of the challenges we're seeing today from a purchase order and contract manufacturing collaboration perspective is lack of response from the supplier on commit dates, a lack of response from suppliers on purchase order confirmations, or something that our teams in the planning space are having to go obtain manually. And we're also struggling to gain increased visibility within our contract manufacturing supply base. So Ben, we'd like to bring you back to the table and maybe you can talk to the group about how GEP's purchase order and contract manufacturing solutions can help solve some of these issues that supply chains are facing today.
Yep, absolutely, Mark. So, traditionally what we see in the space is an organization will cut a purchase order, send it to their supplier, either via email, via fax in some cases still today, if you can believe that, or possibly even a phone call, right? And when we start talking about some of these higher volume relationships between buyers and suppliers, there really needs to be some automation and some efficiency gains there. You can't just send that purchase order and hope that the goods show up. You need to have some insight as to when those are going to be coming.
Right.
So the way this process typically works is that you have your buying site again and your supplying enterprise. You'll send that purchase order over to your supplier, and the supplier will then need to respond to that. Let you know when it's coming, if it's coming, what the quantities are going to be, if it's going to be short, that kind of thing. So really, that collaboration on a purchase order level between the supplier and the buyer, pretty common there. So when we start talking about working with contract manufacturers, this becomes a little bit more complicated. So if you are buying commodities, you are sending a purchase order and you get the goods. It's fairly straightforward. When we start talking about contract manufacturers, this becomes a different situation where we're sending a work order and they may be using some of their components. They may be using some components that you procured, and the manufacturing process may take a few days to a few months. And you really need to understand what material has been consumed, where is the contract manufacturing work order in the life cycle, is it on time? And we provide a platform that allows your contract manufacturers to provide updates against the work orders and purchase orders that you have sent them. All of this is done electronically. Finally, when we start talking about the fulfillment process, we're now talking about shipment ASNs and the ability to get that data electronically in real time. And then finally, when we actually get the receipt, we can send a confirmation back to the supplier letting them know that we have received the goods and it is now available for payment.
Thank you, Ben. I think that's fascinating. And I can tell you, as somebody that used to run a supply chain and somebody that's out in the marketplace on a daily and weekly basis talking to customers, that this will not only improve their supply chains, will not only resonate with those teams, it will not only improve their lives, but it'll also give you visibility into these different data points with the ability to report out on them. And when you start to think about who are those suppliers that we want to continue to do business with within our supply base, who are those suppliers that maybe we want to increase demand with, or who are those suppliers that we want to decrease demand with in a dual sourced environment, right now we can take this data and we can report on it through supplier performance. We can start to track, did they meet their initial commit date? How far off of their initial commit date were they? Were their deliveries on time? Were they in full? Were they of quality, right? These are a lot of things that GEP software being fully integrated and having that extensive platform can help companies out with. Of course, this purchase order and contract manufacturing collaboration is going to drive operational efficiency. And again, when those orders come in, you're going to be able to deliver against them, right? So you're going to be able to recognize that revenue, right? You're going to get the demand and you're going to continue to build customers for life. Ryan, Ben, we started with multi-tier collaboration. We discussed GEP solution and point of view on forecast collaboration, purchase order collaboration, and contract manufacturing collaboration. But I'm guessing a lot of you have a question on your mind is, we have all this collaboration, now we've gained visibility, we've got better data, but what does our inventory look like and how do we see it? And in the marketplace today, we're working with customers that have more than one instance of ERP. Not only 2, 3, 5, 7 instances of ERPs, but we're working with customers that have upwards of 200 instances of ERP. Their item master data, even though it's a common item across manufacturing facilities, can be different within their systems. So even though they have visibility at each manufacturing location, they don't have regional or global visibility into their inventory, which of course causes a whole host of challenges and problems for those that are directing and managing supply chains. So Ben, if you could, I know GEP has an inventory management solution. Maybe talk to the group about how GEP can work with some of these customers and prospects and solve some of the visibility issues and help them to get their arms around what does their inventory look like today.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. One of the things that we see with many of our customers is that they do not have a centralized view of all of their inventory worldwide. In many cases, even within the same state or geography, they don't have a single source of inventory, right? So we've developed a full-fledged inventory and warehouse management solution that includes visibility, right? So you're able to take have a view of all of your inventory across the entire organization, right? And it may be across different ERPs, it may be across different inventory management systems. And we're consolidating all of this information and providing a view of that to anyone that has access to the inventory visibility solution. So as you can see here, this is an example of a multi-tier organization in the US where maybe we have our facilities as well as the inventory at some of our key suppliers. And we're able to filter on that inventory. If I'm looking for a certain part, or I want to see what a specific location has in inventory, I'm able to very quickly search that globally. And we find that many of our customers are really needing this kind of capability. The last thing I would say on this topic is a key part of this is also the rationalization of your master data. Right? Because you may have the same item with a different item number, and our solution with the item MDM, master data management, is able to associate those different items so that we have a common view of inventory across the globe.
So not only are we providing you that global inventory visibility, but some of you probably have hundreds of thousands of SKUs, if not millions of SKUs. But what sets us apart and what sets GEP apart and what differentiates GEP in the marketplace is the fact that we have consulting services, we have managed services, and we can couple that with software. Mm-hmm. And when you couple those three things together, we can quickly clean up your master data. And then we have a software solution that's going to allow that data to remain intact going forward. So as you add new SKUs, that master data management software platform will allow you to continue to clean it up. And I know Ryan, we've got a lot of customers in the marketplace today that are taking advantage of our consulting services coupled with our master data management software to provide themselves global inventory visibility. Maybe you have a customer or two that are top of mind that you could speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have many customers, and so just generally, what they're facing today are those same issues that we've highlighted. That data is scattered everywhere. They're using a tool to solve a specific issue, but they need the processes to align with those tool sets. And so we can come in and we can not only provide a great tool set in order for them to gain that visibility, but then also align their processes so that not only the data is set up in a fashion that is useful and needed by the tool itself, but then also they can generate outcomes that drive value in their business. And that's what we're doing with our customers today.
Right, that's fantastic. And I can tell you, as somebody that used to run a supply chain and that's working with multiple customers and prospects today, that those services and that software is invaluable. And I've actually worked in an environment where I had global inventory visibility. And it just makes the entire supply chain's life easier, right? It provides those value-based outcomes you're talking about. And just, again, it's all about that customer satisfaction, right? And driving that on-time delivery, which is something that we can assist you guys in achieving today in the marketplace with these solutions.
Mark, one thing I might add to that is this isn't just applicable to raw material inventory, right? We see a lot of other types of use cases around capital goods and maintenance, right? So if you have a down situation and you need to know where you might have spare parts that would work for you, instead of getting that from a supplier, maybe you want to check to see if another facility in the same state has something, and you can get it faster that way.
I think that's a great point that you raised, Ben, right? So I think one of the big takeaways that I'm getting from the collaboration discussion, from our inventory visibility discussion, and hopefully you guys, right, as you're listening to us present, have some good questions for us coming at the end, right? We're definitely happy to connect with you, get on the phone and talk about specific use cases or specific needs and requirements that you may have in any of these spaces, and to learn further about how we can help you address these from a GEP perspective. Ryan and Ben, I'd like to transition over to another topic that is impacting supply chains globally across all categories, and that's cost management. I think in the marketplace, we're seeing that companies are concerned with not only the level of inflation, but the level of volatility in pricing into some of their more strategic categories that is ultimately impacting their margins.
Yep, Mark, we do see this with almost everybody we talk to, and it's top of mind. Just a few things about the cost volatility that we're seeing in supply chains today. I saw a statistic that average inflation was something like 7.2% year over year, right? So clearly, gas up 40%, which far outpaces the 7.2% average. But there's a couple other things. It's not just increases; it's volatility. And I'll take the lumber market
That's
as
a
an
good
example,
example. Yeah.
right? So last year you saw prices spike 3, 4, 500%, and then immediately drop back down to kind of historic levels or even below that, and then come back up again. So it's this volatility that's really creating havoc with supply chains and buyers. When you think about, should I be hedging and buying more inventory? Should I wait for prices to come back down? Right? You really need some insight into where are prices going for a specific commodity, and that's a solution that we can provide. We can't lower prices for you, but we can help you mitigate risk and give you some foresight into where our price is going for specific commodities, right? And we do this through a unified solution that encompasses not only some of our cost management applications, but also sourcing, right? So when you look at negotiating with suppliers, you need to have some information at your disposal that will give you some foresight into where our price is going for the items that I am negotiating right now, right? So we do this in a couple different ways. We have some market intelligence services that we provide where we are actually monitoring certain commodities and generating indices for those, right? We have a team of people in our services organization that do that. The other thing that we do that is very unique in this space is that we are connected to over 70,000 different commodity indices. These are syndicated data feeds that we are bringing into our solutions, and we are generating blended models using perhaps multiple indices. Maybe the WTI crude index, blending that along with some type of lumber index, right, to generate a blended forecast. We can also bring in historical data if that's relevant. In cases of great volatility, the historical data becomes much more irrelevant, and future-looking price index data is incredibly valuable. So we're also able to generate cost models that incorporate multiple factors, things like material, labor, transportation, and we can roll all these into a final cost of materials that we are bringing in. So we're taking those market indices for each of those factors, blending those factors together, and providing a finished good cost.
I mean, what you just talked about, Ben, is extremely powerful. And I know that there are several category managers, sourcing managers, global sourcing directors, that their ears just perked up and understanding that if I could see all this in one place, rather than having to go mine it, try to bring it into Excel, maybe find some things via email, do a lot of manual activities, this would significantly increase the productivity of my team, but not only increase the productivity of my team, but mitigate some of the risk associated with inflation and how we drive costs. Now, I'm thinking to myself, what if I'm a global sourcing director, a manufacturing director, a supply chain director, and I'm saying, well, my team doesn't have that expertise, right? GEP has a solution, but I've got category managers and sourcing managers that don't have the expertise to be able to drive a lot of this. Ryan, can you speak about how GEP could help those companies and prospects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think really we've hit on a lot of these main points already, but the multi-factor solutioning that GEP can bring in consulting services, software, and managed services, in addition to all the category management expertise, can really drive value and visibility in cost volatility or in very cost volatile situations, such that our clients are making much better decisions and driving much better value into their supply chain.
So whether you have the expertise internally and you're looking for a solution, a holistic solution that's going to give you visibility into all these different aspects of how you manage a category, how you manage your raw materials, how you manage these costs, or you need the expertise, and we've got hundreds of people globally that can help provide that. GEP is going to be the solution for that, one hand to shake. We have the software, we have the managed services, we have the consulting services, and I think those three things coupled together provide a very unique offering and value proposition to our customers and prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, I've been in supply chain for a long time, and this is one of the solutions that I think is very unique to GEP, right? There's not a lot of solutions in the marketplace today that are taking 70,000 publicly available price indices, right, and bringing those into a solution and giving you insight into, where prices are going for a whole host of commodities. right? And as I mentioned, we kind of do this in two ways. So first of all, we are able to build up predefined cost models that include multiple factors, as I mentioned before. And then we are bringing in a lot of the different index data and using AI to combine those different indices and historical data to give you a future looking preview of where costs may be going for any given commodity or finished good product.
Oh, that's great. And,